Have a true scary story you want to see on my channel? Go to astheravendreams.com/submit. So, thinking back, I actually have a story from back when I was a delivery driver for a certain sandwich shop that pretty much doesn't exist anymore. And while there are certainly people out there that won't think of this as creepy, it was certainly messed up and skeevy. It's one of those stupid memories that you wish you could get out of your head, but will not leave. And when you least expect it, bam, instant revisualization of the situation. And it was not a situation that I want to be reminded of frequently. So, as stated, I worked at a certain sandwich shop that was known for making their sandwiches toasty, as they would put it. Unfortunately, they don't really exist anymore, or at least nowhere near how they used to. I was 18 when I worked there, and was basically the second in command to the manager, mostly because I'd been there for 2 years, which made me the longest employee at the time, aside from him. Unfortunately, being what was basically the assistant manager meant that when corporate told us we were going to do something experimental, I got put on the lead for it. In this instance, we were told that we were going to start doing deliveries during what was essentially the dinner hours. Because of this, we would need a delivery driver, and he said he intended to hire one, but until then I had to do the deliveries during my shift, and he would do them on the days that I was off. I was honestly not happy with this, but since it was so new and wasn't even being advertised yet, it was most likely going to just be people that knew about the location and regulars. Because of that, I was a little more okay with it, but still annoyed. Anyways, after a couple of weeks doing deliveries, it became pretty clear that the manager was in no rush to hire a real delivery driver. So, I was going to be stuck doing it, and I pretty much just accepted that it was my job at that point. And again, most of them were fine. That is, until my manager decided that we didn't have enough deliveries, and put flyers on every car in his apartment rental complex, and every car in the parking lot of our shared strip mall. Basically, he went hardcore on advertising the deliveries as much as he could, and it resulted in us having more than we could handle, and in places that we had never gone. This was obviously a mess, and it really pissed me off, but it's also what led to this delivery that, I guess, stuck with me. The delivery started just like every other one that I'd gone on, except it was to the rental complex where my manager lived, which was basically the absolute farthest we would ever go for a delivery. The delivery comes in, I roll my eyes angrily and I make the sandwich. Then I tell the other 2 coworkers that I would be back in about half an hour, and if another delivery called in, tell them it would be a while. I get in my car, and I drive out to what is probably one of the darkest rental complexes I have literally ever been to. I spend several minutes trying to figure out which townhome this guy lives in, until I manage to spot his number on what is probably the darkest corner of the entire property. To add to this, he didn't have his porch light on, and it didn't look like there were any lights on inside. I hesitantly park my car in front of his building and just sit there, staring. The main thought going through my mind being that I was about to be robbed. It was way too dark and desolate looking for this to go normal. After a couple of seconds, I just sighed and got out of my car, and then I walked up to his door and knocked. After knocking, I turned to look back out into the parking lot to make sure there's no one sneaking up on me. I just kind of stood there awkwardly and stared off into the nearly empty lot for longer than I was comfortable with before knocking a second time. This time, there was a response to my knocking. I heard a guy's voice say, "Who is it?" To which I said, "I'm with the sandwich place. You ordered food for delivery?" He then responds, asking, "How old are you?" This question was weird. I just responded saying that I was there to deliver his food and that was all. He pushed again and asked if I was at least over 18. I really wanted out of this situation, so I just said yes, hoping he would move on. Then he replies with, "Oh, come on in then," which is not something I expected nor wanted to hear. I politely informed him that I just needed him to take the order since he had already paid for it, and I would be good to go. He then again says that I should just come on in so he didn't have to get up. It was at this point that I was legitimately livid. I wasn't going to risk my life and blindly walk into someone else's house just so this guy could be lazy and not get off his ass for a damn sandwich. I respond as firmly as I could without being rude that I could not enter his home and that I needed to get back to the store. I then said that if he did not want to get up, I could leave the bag on the porch for him to get at his leisure, but I would not be entering his home. Within a second of me saying this, the door opens and it got worse. The guy that answered was standing there and staring at me with a big grin on his face and was completely naked, wearing nothing but a baseball cap and his socks. Obviously, I jumped. I didn't expect to see some dude in the buff come to the door for his sandwich, much less one with such a creepy stare on his face. I turned to look away, and I pushed his food order for him to just take it so we could end the ordeal as quickly as possible. This guy then reaches out and seriously caresses my hand with his, and then says, "Oh, come on. No need to be shy. You sure you don't want to come on in?" I seriously almost puked as soon as he said this. I more or less shoved the bag at him and turned, making a mad dash to my car. When I started my car and my headlights kicked on, all I could see was him in all of his horrifying glory, standing in the doorframe and laughing at me. I pulled out and I drove back to the store as quickly as I could. As I was driving, it hit me even harder about how pushy he was for me to come inside. The whole thing just made my skin crawl. When I got back to the store, I called my manager and I informed him of the situation. I expected him to be livid that this happened, much more so that the fact that this guy was practically his neighbor. Much to my surprise, I got nothing more than, "Well, if he didn't hurt you, then we can't do anything about it." I then asked that he be blacklisted from the deliveries, seeing as how he had pretty much attempted to do something, and if nothing else, this was indecent exposure. To that, he said, "Well, I can't really blacklist him, so just be more careful next time." And as soon as he told me that I needed to be more careful, I told him to find another assistant manager and that I quit. I hung up, put my hat, apron, and store keys on the desk in the back, and I left. I only went back to get my last check, and I didn't even say anything extra to the manager. I was genuinely disgusted that this happened, and also angry and hurt that my manager did not seem to care. It just pains me to think that if I were a little more naive, a year younger, maybe a bit less observant of my surroundings, I may have thought that it was okay to go into this guy's house. And then, who knows what would have happened to me. I've been delivering food for one of those popular gig companies that you all know and love. The ones that will charge you way too much to have a McDonald's mech delivered to your house. Since I've been doing it for quite a while, I've seen a lot of strange and creepy things. And I've dealt with what I would consider the most terrifying people out there. Some of my favorites are the ones where the people that you're delivering to come to the door smelling like death or not wearing enough clothing. To add to that aside, please, when you order food from a pizza place, through Uber or DoorDash or whatever, please wear clothing. And please wear enough clothes to cover yourself. I can't tell you how many naked people I've seen through the open curtains, or when they opened the door to get their no contact order. Anyways, moving past my complaints about people having no modesty, one of the other things we tend to run into are crazy people. Sometimes you get people that have pretty clear mental issues, and I understand that a lot of them cannot control their mannerisms, and maybe that's what was wrong with this lady, but honestly, this situation scared the absolute hell out of me. This all happened last year during the C-19 situation, and as stated, I was a driver for one of the companies that delivered food to people from random restaurants. This was near the beginning, when we were still able to hand you your food, but then we also had the option to do the no-contact delivery. When we do the no-contact, we were still expected to make sure that the customer got their food. Basically, we were supposed to drop the order on the porch, ring the bell, and step away to around 6 to 10 feet away, and wait a moment for the customer. I was very specific with how I did things. I wasn't one to just drop the food and run back to my car. And this order was a decent-sized order from a bar and grill, which was fine. I drove to the restaurant, got the food, and then headed out toward the customer's house. I was heading down the street and approaching the destination when I noticed the overall appearance of the neighborhood was starting to decrease. By this, I mean that the houses went from pretty normal suburban homes to a bit run down, all the way to some of the houses looking really bad. I would go as far as saying trashy. I was driving to the end of the road and was trying to find the house that I needed to deliver to, and was honestly starting to get one of those pits in my stomach. The last couple of houses went as such. One house looked kind of meh. One house was completely and totally trashed and looked like a drug house. And the last one looked decent. Looking at these three, I was honestly scared that the drug house was going to be where I had to deliver. So, imagine my surprise when it wasn't, and the number matched the cleanest of the three houses. Anyways, I parked my car in front of the house and grabbed the food, making my way up to the porch. As expected, I dropped the order on the porch and then I rang the bell, and then I stood back and waited for the customer. Within a few seconds of my ringing the bell, I hear the door next door, the door at the drug-looking house, fling open hard and smack against the siding. Obviously, this caught my attention, so I looked over to see what was going on, and I really wish I hadn't. Out of the door comes a woman that had a look about her that was nothing shy of horrifying. She looked like she was genuinely pissed off at the world, and like she wanted to hurt someone, and at that point in time, the only person nearby, and the only person making eye contact, was me. Out of nowhere, she yells, "What the are you doing and what do you want?" I immediately looked back to the customer's door to wait for them to answer and tried to move on from the situation. I reached forward and rang the doorbell a second time, and once again stepped back to my waiting position. Then, out of nowhere, I get this incredibly sharp pain in my leg. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I looked down, I see this literal screwdriver handle sticking out of my leg, and this crazy woman standing there and staring at me like I was literally the cause of every problem she's ever had, and the only solution was to stab me with the rusty screwdriver from her junk pile. I honestly cannot overstate how awkward the situation was. Yes, I had a screwdriver sticking out of my leg, and yes, I was starting to bleed, and yes, she had seriously just stabbed me, but something about the moment of silence between us was just awkward. What exactly do you say to some crazy woman that had just stabbed you with a screwdriver while you were trying to deliver chilies to their neighbor? After a few seconds of silence, the customer opened the door and reached for their food, and almost grabbed it to go back in, until he saw me, the neighbor, and the screwdriver. He dropped his food and ran out to the yard and basically stepped forward to get between me and his neighbor. I don't really remember much between that moment and when the whole thing came to an end. I know that the neighbor was screaming that she had just stopped me from robbing him, and then the customer was screaming about something else. I just remember feeling woozy and asking them to call an ambulance, and for some reason, randomly thinking about how I wasn't going to be able to mark my delivery as finished. If anyone is curious, yes, the cops came, and yes, I ended up going up to the hospital. Getting stabbed with a rusted and weathered screwdriver is something that they typically want you to go get checked out for. I'm pretty sure she got arrested for this situation, but I don't really know because the officers never spoke to me about this situation. I did go back to delivering when I could. I just now have a bit of a limp and a nice circular scar where she stabbed me. Hi, this is Raven. Please, do not click past this. This will be very quickly. This is just me making a very fast plea for stories. I am in need of more stories. So if you have any glitch in the Matrix stories that have happened to you, any creepy encounters, paranormal encounters, anything of the sorts that you know I would have on this channel, please consider sending them my way. To do so, all you have to do is go to astheravendreams.com/submit or check the links in the description. Honestly, so much of my content comes from Reddit, and as of late, for some unknown reason, Reddit has not been a good source for content. I've sent requests as normal, and I've gotten a lot of very rude people getting angry with me for it for some reason. I have no idea why. I'm always professional in my requests, and it's never been an issue in the year and a half I've done this, so it just kind of randomly became a thing. So I'm going to try to source more stories from my audience and people that I know. So, again, if you have any creepy encounters of a specific topic, or just creepy encounters in general, any true scary stories that happen to you, paranormal stories, UFO encounters, glitch in the Matrix stories, deep web stories, anything that you think would look good on my channel, please send it my way. Once more, that is astheravendreams.com/submit, or check the links in the description below. That said, I'm going to shut up and let you enjoy the other two stories. Thank you, and yeah, enjoy. I have a story that happened a few years back when I was 19, and I was a delivery driver for a certain pizza place. I won't give the name of the actual restaurant, but I think you can figure it out if I call it Pizza House. This happened in what I would call a fairly small town that resided in the suburbs of a much larger city. And I thought it was a pretty safe area up until this point. What happened could have happened to anyone, really, but it happened to me because I happened to be the delivery driver that got sent on this delivery. It was a pretty normal night at the pizza house. We were fairly busy, but we weren't being slammed too bad. I was one of 3 drivers that were on the clock that night, and we were busy enough that we didn't get to relax between drives. I remember I was on a double delivery when this took place, and for those of you that don't know, a double delivery is literally what it sounds like. You're tasked with taking 2 deliveries at the same time. You basically drive to the closest location, then to the furthest location and back. It's an incredible pain in the ass because you usually end up late to the second delivery and the customers get angry. So, as I said, I had to take a double delivery and both of them were pretty far from the store. In fact, they were actually on the outer ring of our deliveries. When it came in, I grabbed the bags, put the light sign thing for Pizza House on top of my car, which was a requirement, and headed off to my first location. Everything was going normal. I was talking to my girlfriend while the GPS told me which way to go. I was most of the way to the first location when I pulled up to a red light and stopped, like I had to. I was complaining to my girlfriend about how much I genuinely disliked being the pizza boy when I glanced over and saw a couple of guys crossing the road. I made eye contact with one of them and pretty much just kept talking about random nothingness. As I was watching the one cross the road, I noticed that the other guy walked a little closer to the lane I was in, and my mind immediately clicked that something bad was about to happen. I was just sitting there, defenseless at the red light, chatting about literally nothing with my girlfriend on the phone, and it didn't occur to me until it was too late that these guys were up to no good. By the time it seriously clicked, the guy that was in the lane was pulling on my door handle and shouting that I needed to unlock the door. I thought about slamming my gas pedal and driving off. I thought about just running the light to get the hell away from this, but then I saw that the first guy was standing in front of my car and pointing a gun at me. I was literally sitting there staring down the barrel of some handgun on some street that I didn't know, with 2 guys about to carjack me. Well, that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were seriously about to rob me, carjack me, steal all the store's cash, and leave me on the side of the road. I even said that to my girlfriend. I told her to stay on the phone but not say anything, and that I was being robbed. She quickly stopped talking and did exactly as I asked. I looked back over to the guy at my passenger door, and he was shouting at me to unlock the door. I slowly did as he asked, and reached down to hit the unlock button. As soon as I did, he pulled open the door, grabbed the 2 delivery bags with the pizza, then slammed the door and the 2 of them just ran off. I literally just sat there with my heart pounding and my blood pressure seriously spiking hard as I watched these 2 men seriously run off with food and nothing else. These guys had me at gunpoint for pizza. Pizza. They didn't take my money. They didn't take my phone, my car, nothing. They just stole around $85 worth of pizza. I even told my girlfriend between adrenaline-fueled tears that I was just robbed, but they only took the pizza. I remember her asking if I was serious and then even laughing slightly. I told her I needed to call the store and tell them. I hung up from the call and I called my manager directly. I told him that I was robbed, and he had first asked if I was okay. But when I told him that they just stole the pizza, he seemed a bit less serious about the situation. Obviously, I was terrified. I was seriously thinking that I was going to be hurt or lose my livelihood. I'm actually thankful that these guys just wanted the food and decided not to take anything else. So, I just discovered this sub and have my own creepy encounter that I think you guys will like. It's quite a long story, so grab a drink and enjoy. I used to deliver pizzas for a pizzeria in Cape Town, South Africa, when I was in university to make some extra cash. I used to deliver to the same house quite often. Incidentally, this place is quite close to where I lived at the time. There was nothing overtly strange about this place, except that whoever would receive the pizza would normally take quite a long time to come to the door, and would always ask me to pass the pizza through the security gate instead of unlocking it and making it easier for everyone involved. One quiet night, a call comes through for this house, and I collect the pizzas and gets to the house reasonably quick. This time a lady who I have never seen at this house before opens the door and lets me in. Not entirely uncommon to be let into a customer's house, so I don't think anything of it. She points me towards the kitchen, which is down quite a long corridor, and asks me to drop the pizzas there. She follows me all the way, still nothing weird. The passage opened up into an open-plan dining room and lounge area. Through this area is the kitchen through a door on the left. As I was passing through the dining room/lounge area, I saw something that sticks with me to this day. An old-looking dentist chair with a person lying on it. Whether this guy was alive or not, I still don't know. He had a sheet covering his whole body except the very top of his head and his feet, which were duct-taped together. I couldn't tell if he was breathing or not. The lady that opened the door was still right behind me, and she said absolutely nothing. We went into the kitchen and she paid me for the pizzas. At this point, I was either expecting to be attacked by this lady or someone else hiding somewhere, or to be scared by the guy under the sheet as some part of sick joke. Not wanting to give anything away, I didn't say anything, and I prepared myself to either defend myself or not be frightened should it be a joke. I walked out towards the front door, double-checking to see what I saw was correct and not just my imagination. The lady was still behind me the whole way, and she closed the door behind me as I left and said nothing. To this day, I still have no idea what was happening in that house. It could have been some joke, but I really don't think it was. The presence of a dentist chair still makes no sense. I didn't see anything else that would suggest the residents of the house collected weird paraphernalia. I drive past that house quite often and still wonder if I was actually in any danger. So that, my friends, was a collection of pizza food delivery stories. They weren't all pizza stories, just food delivery. Hopefully, you all enjoyed them. I actually used to be a driver at Pizza Hut. Never really had anything terrifying happen. I had one guy answer the door and yell at me because I was 5 minutes late with his pizza. And that was the day we were on triples, not doubles. That sucked. Oh my god. I sympathize with the one that had to do the double, but the triples were just as bad. And again, sounds like it is. You had to take 3 deliveries, and it never worked out right. Ever. Because if you're taking 3 deliveries, that means you're probably down a driver and everything is late. So, anyways. Yeah, I used to be a driver for Pizza House. Pizza Hut. Say it, whatever, Pizza Hut. It was okay. It kind of sucked. You weren't treated very well as a driver, and you had to stay all night and do the dishes. That was pretty crappy. But anyways, yeah, so hopefully you all enjoyed these. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed yet, and the bell icon next to it. You can also let me know what you thought in the comments. Follow me on all my social media platforms, or support the channel over Ko-fi, Patreon, or memberships. All patrons and members get early access. Most patrons and members get extra content, 2 extra videos a month potentially. So check that out if you're interested. If not, totally cool. None of it is ever expected, but all of it is always appreciated. And I hope you have a beautiful night. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Sleep well.